Hi, I'm Tiffany Putz, and I'm going to go over understanding your students' needs and how to help all of the children in your classroom. Um, the main topics for this conversation is going to be how to help children that have a loss of memory or they just struggle in general to remember things, whether it be from a fall or any other kind of brain injury. Um, we'll talk about children who can't communicate, whether it be they can't communicate verbally or they're too shy or just any kind of lack of communication. Children who can't sit still or be quiet, generally ADHD children, and sometimes even um, kids who are autistic and have some sensory things. Children who cannot physically do certain things in the classroom, whether it be because they are in a wheelchair or because um, they could be missing a limb or could be any number of things. There are lots of reasons why a child can struggle physically. Um, we'll go over children who are sensitive to all sorts of sensory things. Usually, those kids are ones who are diagnosed with autism. Autism is a very widespread um, uh, oh my goodness, I can't think of the word. But autism is very common in special education classrooms. And then also, we'll talk about kids who may be dyslexic or they struggle with writing because of dyslexia or even sometimes memory loss. So, the first one is how to help a student with memory loss. Again, a lot of things can cause memory loss. It could be because of a fall, it could be just because of lack of certain brain functions. First and foremost, the thing to remember, and I will probably say this over and over again, is to make sure that you are supportive. Um, with kids that have memory loss, I know firsthand from having a student in the classroom I'm in right now, um, it can be hard as the teacher having to repeat yourself over and over and over again. And so we have to make sure as educators that we don't make them feel bad about the fact that they can't remember, because then that will cause a lack of confidence and then they won't want to learn anything anyway. So, what we have to do as teachers is just be um, extremely supportive and just keep reminding them of what it is they need to learn or do. Um, Chances are they're going to forget again, but you just have to be that support for them because it's really hard sometimes for kids to remember things. And it can be anything from how to say a word that they have read or heard over and over again, day in and day out, but sometimes it just doesn't stick. And so you just have to be that support system for them. Um, how to help a student who can't tell you how they're feeling. So this would be a student that cannot verbally speak. Um, this could be due to hearing loss. This could be some kids with Down syndrome. Sometimes they can't verbally communicate. In the classroom I'm in right now, we have 4 students that are incapable of um, verbally speaking to us. All of them can make noises of one sort or another, but they can't physically say words. And so, what we use in our classroom, I forget what the program is called, but it's a program that is on their iPads, and they push a button that helps them to communicate what their needs are. Another big thing that we pay attention to is just their expressions. One of our students, she does a little bit of sign language, but the biggest thing is her facial expression. She's very, very expressive, and you can always tell when she's confused or sad or excited or frustrated. So just paying attention to their facial cues is huge, 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 huge. And again, just be supportive of these kids. It's just as frustrating for them that they can't communicate as it is for you that you don't know what they're thinking. Um, so you just have to be patient and supportive and do whatever it takes to help them. Um, these kids also struggle with testing, and so when it comes to that kind of thing, um, our head teacher, she just tries to find ways to get them to show her, like she gives them options and has them point to whatever they think the answer may be when it comes to testing and stuff. So you just have to find different ways for them to be able to communicate with you, and then it all works out great. Okay, how to help a student that may have ADHD. So again, I have one student that comes to mind. He's very antsy. He has to move all the time, always making noises, always rocking, always playing with things. Um, the biggest pointers I have there would be find stress toys. Like for him, he has they're called squishies, but he messes with these things all the time. Like when he's reading or just trying to focus on an assignment, he plays with one of these squishies so that he can focus on whatever it is that he's trying to accomplish. Another thing is make sure that if you do assigned seating that they are not sitting by a window or a door. Um, Most of the time that helps. I do know that sometimes the student will just get up and run to a window or a door and see what's happening outside anyway. But if you can keep them away from it, it will cause less distractions. And again, with these kids, you definitely have to have patience for them and you definitely have to be a good support system because if you're not, it will only amp them up more. Um, and if they amp up more, then obviously you're going to have more problems with getting them to focus on their work. How to help a student that may be in a wheelchair or need another type of physical assistance. So, my very first student as a sped para, he had knee surgery on both of his knees and he was in a wheelchair for a long, long, long time. And he had to relearn how to walk. Well, before he was able to do so, I had to do a lot of accommodations for him. Um, but in order to do that, we got him a special desk that he could sit at in his wheelchair. But then when we wanted him to learn how to walk again, it would crank up, and so it would be a standing desk as well. Um, so just having things like that to accommodate these kinds of kids. Um, if it's a situation where, as I stated earlier, maybe they're missing their hand. We have several kids in our school actually that are missing a hand, and so sometimes even just having a para or another student help that person to be able to accomplish whatever goal it is they're trying to reach, that's a great way to help. And again, always be encouraging and supportive of these kids because it's not their fault that, they are incapable of doing certain things. They just need a little extra help. How to help kids that have autism. So autism is very common, and these kids have sensitivity to all kinds of things, loud noises, touching things, all kinds of stuff. So just make sure that you have what you need to accommodate that. So for people that have issues with noises, make sure you have noise canceling headphones. If it's a touching thing, don't force them to touch things because it only gets them amped up, and then chances are they're going to shut down, and then you have a whole nother whirlwind of issues. And again, always just be supportive and make sure that they know that you are there for them. How to help a student with dyslexia. This kind of goes with the memory loss thing too sometimes. But dyslexia basically is just reading words backwards or upside down or whatever. But the best ways to help them is to read the book to them or whatever it is that they're reading, read it to them, or offer audiobooks when you can. Just do whatever it takes to help make reading easier um, so that they can feel like they can accomplish what they need to do, and always be patient and supportive. That's the number one thing, is to have patience with all of these kids. I am going to read this part because I think it's really important. Learning is hard enough without having something that may make it more difficult. And by that I mean, you know, like for me, for example, I struggle with learning. I struggle with my classes. I have a hard time. Um, I can't imagine having to have any kind of disability on top of it. So instead of making things more difficult, we as teachers have to remember that we need to do whatever it takes to make it a little bit easier. Life is hard already, and when you have a disability on top of it, I can't imagine what the struggle is for them in their own minds. So we just have to make sure that we do whatever we can to give them the support they need so that they can get the proper education that everyone deserves. So, and that's all I have. Thank you.